Lions just recovered a fumble.
Bits of wisdom.
It's Harry Houdini, I'm pretty sure.
That's when it kind of becomes Home Improvement After Dark.
I guess that leaves us at the question of the week.
Very good. I don't know if you noticed, Jordan, but a really cool aerial shot of the table. Reasonably funny.
User review.
Does everybody know what time it is?
Home and podcast time.
That's right. A company that is a twin of Binford Tools is proud to present a home improvement podcast. My name is Adam, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jordan. Morning, Jordan. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well. Can you hear my new microphone? Do I sound good?
Yeah, you sound great. New mic.
I knew it.
Same old technical problems.
That's right. Yeah, it took us about 10 minutes. We had to switch from Skype to Google Hangouts and all sorts of recording issues, but it's up and working now. Hopefully I sound good, and we're ready to get episode 2 of season 2 underway.
You sound great, Jordan.
Thank you. I've been really working on my my podcast voice.
Your vocal coach is doing you wonders. Whatever you're paying him, I'd double it. You sound great.
Here's the thing. I don't sound as good when I do horse noises like you, so...
You do.
Few do, yeah. So... it's Friday. We're getting close to the weekend. Adam, do you have any fun weekend plans?
TGIF, my man. This weekend, I have some plans. Tonight, my girlfriend and I are going to see It's a Wonderful Life at the local. Well, it's an old theater here in DeKalb called the Egyptian Theater. It's really nice. They've kind of updated it, but also maintained kind of the 1930s sort of look of it. So. That's a good time. They do movies there every so often. I think a few months back we saw, I might even mention it in the podcast. It was, what was it? It was a Cary Grant movie. I can't remember what it was. Maybe, I guess Notorious it was called. So every so often they'll play old movies, and for the Christmas season they're playing It's a Wonderful Life, and I think we both really like that one. And tomorrow, may drive into the city and see a friend, but trying to keep it low-key, excited for It's a Wonderful Life. That's kind of the big thing for us this weekend. What about you?
Yeah, I think there's a citywide garage sale going on tomorrow, so my wife and I are going to go hit the garage sales, see if we can find any good deals. I know that we're both big garage sale fans. We've gone garage selling together a few times when we were younger. My neighborhood growing up used to have a really big one.
Saying that we're both big garage sale fans is essentially admitting that we're both relatively cheap.
Sure.
Right? Yeah.
You could say that.
I think so.
Not according to this podcast microphone.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're willing to spend on things that matter, like this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We do love garage sales. We've done some garage selling together. Houghton Lake, where my parents live, has good summer sales. Davison, your old subdivision, had Belmead had a good sale as well. What kind of things do you typically look for when you're sailing?
Yeah, I'm a big game guy, so I look for old video games. I used to, when we were younger, I used to look for old Sega games or Nintendo. And now I've found some good board games. I bought a brand new, basically never used catchphrase game for $1, so I was pretty happy about that. Usually you can, once in a while, you get somebody selling golf balls, an old golfer who doesn't go anymore, and they'll sell 12 balls for 50 cents or something like that. Yep. So just different stuff that pertains to those kind of hobbies. I don't really, I'm not looking for any knickknacks or anything like that.
No tchotchkes?
So. What about you? What are you looking for?
Well, usually books, I would say. I'd say the bulk of my purchases at garage sales are, just random books.
You like old cassettes of Flubber and stuff like that too?
VHS tapes, compact discs, VCRs, things like that. No, mostly books. I'll buy some furniture from time to time, end tables and things like that. But yeah, primarily books, and if I can run across maybe a T-shirt or something that is the right size. But garage sale clothes are very much it's risky business, as Tom Cruise might say. It's just, if it doesn't smell right, I'm not interested. But every once in a while, you'll find something decent. But
that's true. You could get a good jersey or something.
I bought a really cool dictionary several years ago at a garage sale. It's maybe 1940, 1950, very thick, leather bound, and that was $5, and that's been kind of a mainstay of my
Is that a Webster's dictionary or what?
It is a Webster's. Well, yeah, I'm sure it is. I could go look, but I don't want to get up and have to stop the recording. But yeah, that's been a mainstay in all of my places for the last 4 or 5 years, and that was a good find. But yeah, I like it. I like the process of, my parents and I driving around at Houghton Lake, getting out of the car, making a decision early on if it's worth our time or not, sticking around if it is, if not, getting back in the car and on to the next one.
That's right. Yeah, when we moved to Florida a couple of years ago, we held a decently big garage sale at my wife's grandma's house. Had a big, we sold all of our furniture and all that kind of stuff, trying to get a little fun going for moving. So I've been on both ends.
I used to every summer for like 4 years in a row. I had one on Richfield where I used to live, and it's not a subdivision, but we would do all right, and it's relatively easy. Just kind of hang out in the house. If a car pulls in, you go outside and see what's up.
You're a good salesman too.
Oh, geez.
So
I hope not.
No, that's not your cup of tea. But you did have some good baseball cards and memorabilia. Yep. I remember that.
Yeah.
But
got to get rid of that stuff at a certain point, though, because then you're lugging tubs of just cards from place to place, and for nomads like us, Jordan, that's just no way to live.
Yeah, we're trying to get rid of as much stuff as possible. But you talked a little bit about how much you like books. I know that you didn't pick up this latest book at a garage sale, but let's go ahead and move on to the next section where we do talk a little bit about a certain book.
Yeah, I was wondering, with that in mind, Jordan, if you would have any interest in queuing those grounds. Big dog?
Sure, it's all safe to me. Oh, no.
Now it's time for Bits of Wisdom.
This week's bit of wisdom comes from the Tim Allen text, "I'm not really here." Not a bestseller, but a seller nonetheless. This comes from Chapter 5, entitled Chapter 5. Although we deal with real issues, the Taylors are not exactly real, even though according to quantum physicists, it's hard to say what's real and what's not these days. I go by the orange juice test. If at least 20% comes from real oranges, it satisfies the legal requirements, and I'm pretty sure Anita Bryant concurs. The Taylors live by a sitcom formula. Any problem that exists needs to be solved in about 23 minutes. Real family problems can stay unresolved for a lifetime. Or put it this way, if this were an episode of Home Improvement, Tim Taylor would have found the hood ornament by now, blown it up, Jill would have proven him silly, and Wilson would have adequately explained his behavior through some old Tibetan tribal ritual. Tim Taylor not only survives, but hopefully grows wiser through the experience, and our 23 minutes are up. This has been your bit of wisdom.
Well, it's nice that we get a reference to the show that we're covering.
More interesting than some of the things I probably relayed in this segment. So he does seem to be somewhat aware of the show's general formula and shortcomings. So hopefully you learned something there, Jordan.
I learned a lot.
Cool. And this chapter,
I think the Taylors do exist, at least in my heart.
Sure, Jordan. This chapter goes on a little bit longer, and there's I read more of this one than some weeks, and he talks a lot about home improvement, so it's relatively interesting, reasonably funny, I would also say. Speaking of reasonably funny, what are we covering this week?
We're covering episode 26, Rites and Wrongs of Passage. This episode this week is going to be sponsored by Linda Sta. I hope I'm saying your last name right, Linda. She is a sponsor according to Patreon, so if you want to go there and sponsor us, you can do so for $1 or more a month. That's patreon.com/HomeandPodcast. And also, the episode is written by Susan Estelle Jansen. She did What About Bob, Bubble Bubble, Toil and Trouble, and Wild Kingdom. So I think she's done a few now. This is her fourth, I believe. And then this episode was aired September 23rd, 1992. And we do have another lengthy synopsis by Tony Topola. I guess I'll read it because I think you like to take a nap during this portion.
Yeah, I'm gonna go put together a sandwich. So just give me a holler when you're done.
Okay, all right. So, episode 26. In Tool Time, Tim's guest Angus MacLean has has come to tell about the Highland Games in Detroit. Tim and Al will be participating in the games. At home, Tim has bought tickets to the biggest monster truck rally in the history of Detroit, which means that Jill will get the house all to herself on Sunday. Brad's principal calls the Taylors and tells us that Brad has hid a dissected frog in her food. Turns out that Brad's schoolmate had dared him to do it. Brad gets grounded, and Jill says that means no truck rally for him, but Tim wants to allow Brad to go. They have an argument about it, but eventually come to a compromise. Then comes the evening when the police bring Brad home. ...
Yeah,
so,
stakes are high.
Stakes are high in this one. Honestly, it is higher than I thought they would be when the episode opened. The episode opens on a cold open on Tool Time. Tim has put a hole in some glass windows. It's implied that he slammed the glass on Al's head. I don't really see any signs of that because Al's head looks perfectly okay.
It's a strange, clunky first. I mean, the scene itself is fine, but it's a weird opening because just like last time, the episode started and I thought, oh, did I miss like the first scene? Did I miss seeing Al get whatever shattered on his head? So it was I don't know, kind of erratic if you ask me.
Here's the one thing that this opening scene has that I don't think they did last time. It's got a little bit of foreshadowing to it with the broken glass. So
oh yeah,
we'll see that in a couple spots later on.
Sometimes your analysis just really surprises me. I didn't even put that together. Well, this show's too heady for me.
Yeah, everyone. That's been the MO for Home Improvement for years, but. Yeah, they also turn, they have another new sign here. It says, men at work, and then it turns around and says men at play. So a lot of custom signage this season. We had, the last episode, they had that custom stop sign. Do you remember that? Where Tim held that up and it said stop on one side and the other side it said what it would say if women made the stop sign.
I do not remember that.
Oh, well, they're spending a lot of money on some bad props, basically. But yeah, so they bring out Angus. Tim calls him Agnes.
Well, we should say that the Scottish Highland Games are taking place the upcoming weekend in the Detroit area, and yeah, he brings out Angus, but he refers to him as Agnes, and I'm gonna screw it up. I knew I would. Angus is there to talk about the upcoming festival, and he's doing some PR for it.
He's got a nice kilt.
He's got a nice kilt. He's really acting the hell out of this Scottish character. Mm-hmm. And he's got a kilt on, and there's some really unfunny bits happening here. There's jokes about him wearing a skirt, which of course you're expecting on an episode of Home Improvement. There's some good old fashioned homophobia, and it's basically it's being set up that Tim is kind of making fun of the Scottish festivities, and he wants what specifically is it called when they throw the
caber toss.
Is it caber? Kaber?
Okay. I don't know if it's K or C, but it's caber. I thought it was caper at
so
first,
did I.
and then I thought maybe they were like stealing things, like a caper,
Yeah, I didn't think that. So you're on your own there. So yeah, Tim's he's doing the thing where he is sort of downplaying, let's say the physical nature or the physical force required to do something like that. He thinks anybody can do it. Al kind of challenges him, and
the audience challenges him.
That's one thing that I noticed. That's such a bad cut. Like, it's so obvious that at a separate time during the filming that they were just like, "Hey, audience members, we need you to cheer really loud on the count of 3."
And they did. And they there wasn't even a build up. It was just like instantly very loud.
They cut right there to these. Don't you think? Like, didn't that seem very obvious to you that was something that wasn't happening in the moment?
The crowd seemed happy though, so I was okay with it.
I want to talk a little bit about Angus before we move
Please.
On. So Angus McLean is played by Will Nye, not to be confused with Bill Nye.
Not the science
Bill Nye,
guy.
the science guy. He has 30 credits to his name. He last appeared in an episode of Columbo in 1997. That must have been a Columbo reboot. He did 15 episodes of Murder, She Wrote. And he was cop number 1 in Clue, the film Clue. You ever seen Clue?
Yeah, it's been a long time, but I definitely liked that a lot when I was younger.
It's a good one. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, Tim Curry.
Tim Curry, baby.
He nails it.
He's That and Pennywise the Clown, my two favorite Tim Curry roles.
Perfect. I liked him as Long John Silver in Muppet Treasure Island. So
I like him in that movie where it's like about a gorilla and he's kind of a bad guy and he wants like diamonds. You know what I'm talking about? It's a 90s movie.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I saw it in theaters. I remember it was really
Congo.
Congo,
yeah,
yeah. Good pull.
Hey, I knew a movie for once. Did you see that?
You knew a movie that I didn't know. Yeah, this is good. It's a good day for us.
The growth in season 2.
Yeah.
So Will Nye, he comes in a couple different times, but we won't see him really till the end of the episode again.
At first I thought it was really bad acting, but I don't know that there's a way to play this and have it not be hammy. I guess that's what he probably was supposed to do. But
as someone of Scottish descent, I thought he did great.
This is the first I've heard you ever reference being of Scottish descent. But
that's my last name is Scottish.
It is?
So yeah.
Wow.
You're learning a lot today.
Cold open ends.
Cold open ends. They're going to promote literacy. That's what these whole games are about. I should say that. We all need to know about
the Highland Games in Detroit are promoting literacy.
Yeah, I don't know how those two intersect.
Who came up with that?
I don't know, but that's what they're going to promote. So we'll move to the intro, and I don't want to talk too mumuch about this because we spent a lot of time. Unless you noticed anything different.
I wrote one thing down, and maybe we mentioned this last week, but Brad looks scared at the end of the end of the open as the pinwheels go up. Did you say that last week?
I did say that.
Well, I agree with you, and I want to talk about it again right now. No, yeah, he looks very afraid as those pinwheels come up.
He's frightened.
Yeah, I guess I would be afraid too if I walked outside.
Maybe as he's like on the cusp of manhood here, he's frightened at what is to come.
Well, after he learns how to use the blowtorch at the end of this one, he's not afraid of anything.
He's
true. Anointed in castor oil.
He ain't afraid of no goats. So we did also send out the question. We had the question last time about the intro where we didn't exactly know what Jill was saying at the end. And Stacy, who sponsored our last episode at the Fortress on Twitter,
Stacy's had just a heck of a week. I mean, Stacy's coming in the clutch. Stacy, we so appreciate you. We appreciate Linda as well, but Stacy, I mean, 2 for 2. She's batting 1,000.
Yeah, she's hitting it out of the park. So her insight on this was she believes that Jill was saying, do we put the kids in the middle as if they were taking a portrait? And if you look at the intro, that's what it looks like. So, Stacy, good job. Way to go.
Stacy, you are a goddess.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we cut into the familiar kitchen set. Mark enters, and he's asking his mom about some notebooks. So she was supposed to pick up some notebooks for them, I would imagine, for school. School and school issues kind of play a role in this episode. And she was only able to get puppy/rainbow notebooks.
Well, she got 2 blank ones, and then 1 puppy rainbow.
Oh, okay, so 2 blank ones.
And Randy gets that one. That's why he's so upset.
But they wanted Terminator.
Yeah, they wanted Terminator. What kind of notebooks did you have as a kid? Do you remember? I had a lot of sports ones.
Probably,
lions,
probably
tigers.
Folders I would have had sports ones.
Yeah, folders.
Notebooks, probably just whatever was cheap,
Yeah, they call them notebooks, but they're really 3-ring binders.
Oh, they are? Okay. Well, then I would have had probably Grant Hill or something.
Oh, yeah.
Because early on, my first thing I remember being really into was the 95, 96 Pistons teams. So Grant Hill, Joe Dumars, I think Rick Mahorn was still around. So those guys. So yeah, probably something like that. But yeah, if not that, then something very, very bland and relatively cheap.
I might have had a Charizard or something.
Barry Sanders as well, probably. I remember having a lot of Barry Sanders themed stuff when I was a young chap.
I had a weird habit that I think I picked up from my brothers, where on the back of a note, a regular spiral notebook, there's that brown page or whatever. Cardboard page or whatever you want to call it, and I would for some reason write down the name of a lot of rappers. So the back of my my notebook was just sprawled with Jay-Z, Tupac, Notorious B.I.G., and then really weird ones like Wu-Tang Clan and other stuff. So that was a weird thing that I remember from being a kid. I don't remember a lot of stuff from my childhood, but for some reason that was something.
That and the Christmas play, which we're nearing Christmas time, and I think I'm going to give you about I'm going to give you more time at the beginning of an episode in the future just to kind of walk us through that Christmas play. I don't think people have gotten enough. I get a lot of messages on Twitter from people just saying, "Give us more, give us more." We're not satisfied with what we've been given.
It was nothing like the Santa Claus movie that Tim Allen stars in.
That's true. I'm sure. I would imagine not.
Yeah.
So where are we at? Where are we at here?
Tim comes home, and he's got some tickets to a monster truck rally. Truckenstein versus Fordzilla. Some very creative names there. Brad and Dad start talking a little bit about cars. I don't remember which truck they're talking about, but one's got a new Hemi in it, blah, blah, blah. A bunch of things I don't understand.
I think Truckenstein got a new Hemi.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah.
Is it Fordzilla that's coming out of retirement?
Fordzilla's come out of retirement, and Truckenstein just got a new Hemi. I like the names. It is similar to their ability to name a child or just a, Porsche Tino, Club Piranha, things like that. So Truckenstein versus Fordzilla, I don't know. Maybe they're real. I suspect they're not. But, Tim's got some tickets. They're the hardest tickets in town to get, and they are going to the Silverdome. And I wanted to ask you, Jordan, been to the Silverdome? Any experience at the Silverdome?
Yeah, I went to one football game there. I only think I've ever been to one Lions game.
In your life?
And yeah, I've never really gone to any other Lions games. And I believe it was at the Silverdome with my dad and my grandpa and maybe one of my brothers. So I think we lost. I might have been against like the Broncos or something.
Right.
I don't know.
I
probably went to some concerts there or something when I was younger, like some stupid Power Rangers things, but I don't know.
I remember, I think my dad had season tickets at the Silverdome for a little while, so I remember going a little bit. I mean, it was huge, right? I don't know about 100,000 people. I guess I could find out. But it was massive.
Yeah, and now it's sad when you see pictures of it now. But
someone recently bought it out. Opened 1975 and sits on 127 acres of land. Trying to find capacity 82,000, so that is just massive. I remember being there, as a young boy, early 90s, where a guy from the Lions, and I wish I was trying to find his name right now. He had a career-ending injury, and he was paralyzed on the field during the game, and he never walked again.
That's very depressing.
It was, yeah. And so we just looked it up, and the player that I was talking about was Reggie Brown. So he was a receiver for the Lions, and sadly I was there. Linebacker, sorry. Sadly I was there 96, 97 when he was paralyzed. Have seen him since on television stuff, and he rebounded well. But that was I have good memories of the Silverdome, but that was a sad one for everybody there.
Definitely,
you could hear a pin drop when it happened. It was.
Oh, I bet.
We'll be back at the Silverdome later on. I know there's an episode in the future where I think Rodney Dangerfield is there, so that's what I'm definitely looking forward to in the future, because we're a couple of Dangerfield heads, as you might say.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one. So back to the episode a little bit. They're talking cars, and Brad is excited about working on the hot rod. They want to go start working on it right now. As they're on their way to the garage, the phone rings, and Jill answers. And, I think Randy says that it's, is it Jennifer Sudarsky?
Right.
Which it's not. Instead, it's the principal.
Mrs. Blackburn.
Mrs. Blackburn
singing in the dead of night.
Okay. Beatles reference there. Nice job. And the other...
Sure was.
This is a bad scene for Brad here. Jill learns about a little bit of trouble that he's gotten into. It turns out that Brad took a dissected frog, put it on a lettuce leaf, hid it under a Jell-O square on a dare. George Walker dared him to do it, and instead the principal cut in line and ate part of it.
There's no way that Brad would be dissecting a frog. At his age? Yeah,
at his age.
In high school, we dissected.
I was gonna say it reminded me of a certain cat I know.
Jordan and I were lab partners in high school biology, and we dissected a cat. And I feel bad now because I have these two kitties 2 feet away from me, sleeping so sweetly. They're just little angels. But in high school, we dissected a cat, and we named it Jasper Geppetto Brasky, after Bill Brasky, the SNL sketch. Geppetto came from Meet the Parents because he says the little cat that he milked named
that's right,
Geppetto. And then Jasper,
It's just a funny
got
name.
nothing. But yeah, the dissection did remind me of our times, and you know what? We did such a poor job on that whole thing. Do you remember that?
We were the only one who screwed up the cat, right?
We did. I mean, we did every step of the way wrong. And I was not a good I guess I wasn't like
anatomy.
I was anatomy. I was not the strongest anatomy student. Also,
but you were with me.
Perhaps the effort wasn't there on my end.
A lot of too many cat jokes, too many like meowing during dissection.
I wish we wouldn't. Why did they have us do that? That's a gross thing to do.
Well, you gotta learn about anatomy and physiology.
Don't. I mean, I've not used it since then, but yeah, I did think of that. Those are. Yeah, it doesn't sit well with me now. Back then, I didn't have the fondness for cats that I've come to have currently. But yikes, yeah. So he's dissecting a frog. His principal bites into it, which is pretty gross.
Pretty disgusting.
But he lies and says that his parents are in France, apparently at school after it happens. So she calls and Brad's in trouble. But also Tim is sort of impressed by the whole thing. He's kind of laughing his way through it. They ground him for the weekend, and Jill says that he can't go to the monster truck rally, and Tim immediately says, whoa, wait a minute, can I talk to you in the garage? Which is not a great thing as a parent to do. Tim's kind of trying to solidify himself as like the cool dad versus kind of the mean mom, which seemed to me like very much a real thing that parents probably struggle with.
Yeah, I would imagine so. And I would imagine like rule number 1, you got to be on the same page with this kind of stuff, and kind of undermining her right in this moment is not a good choice. But they go into the garage, they talk a little bit more about, Tim wants him to go, he's really been looking forward to it, and he goes on to say that they did this type of thing when he was younger. Jill put rice pudding in Helen Weiss's training bra, I guess.
Well, they could never prove it was her.
They could never prove it was her.
She doesn't seem like a prankster at all.
No, but apparently she, we all change as we get older, Adam. So.
That's true. Jill gives in relatively easy, though. Like, the compromise here...
They make an agreement. Yeah. It's not a good compromise, really.
No.
Basically...
He has to apologize, which he should have done anyways.
Exactly. But he still gets to go. Right, and he's still grounded for the rest of the weekend.
I think I got grounded once when I was young. Like, one time, and I couldn't watch TV for, like, 2 days. So, this is a kind of punishment I could relate to as a child.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Brad gets out pretty scot-free here.
So next scene, there's a knock at the door, and we can assume some time has passed. I guess a couple hours. It's later on that night, and Brad's at the door, and there are flashers behind him, and a cop has brought him back to the house. Apparently, he was throwing bricks at greenhouses with some older boys, and Jordan, I gotta say, Brad's slowly morphing into a bad seed right before our eyes.
I know. I did not see it coming.
It was abrupt.
It was very abrupt. I mean, what was he doing last episode? I certainly don't remember anything
Jordan,
like this.
He was trying to get kissed. So I guess maybe he's maturing.
He's certainly going through puberty, and it's happening at a lightning pace right now.
They thought he was upstairs in his room doing homework, so apparently he snuck out, which...
Must have climbed a ladder down from the window.
He snuck out, and he met up with some older kids, and throwing bricks at greenhouses. And a female officer brings him back, and she's very serious. This scene is not being played for laughs really at all. That's one note I had on this episode. I sort of like this episode, but tonally it is very much just, it's all over the place. Sometimes
I will say at the start of this episode, I don't know if you noticed, but they start with Tim reading in a chair. He's reading The Wild World of Scotland. Did you see that at all?
Start of the scene, he is?
Yeah. They start with him at the scene, and then they pan to the back door where it starts knocking.
I did not notice that. Well, I guess that's good.
He's doing some research.
Good detail, I guess. But yeah, do you know what I'm saying, though? Where sometimes this episode, like, so it's like funny that Brad is doing these pranks, and then sometimes
and then all of a sudden
it's like
not
very
funny.
Serious. Like, I can't relate to Brad anymore. So yeah, the officer that brings him back is she is credited as policewoman. She's played by Virginia Watson. She has 56 credits. She was in films Don't Be a Menace to Society, Virtuosity, and Mothers and Daughters. She was also in the Yada 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 episode of Seinfeld.
Really?
So
how do you like that?
I like it pretty well.
I think they call her Officer Carrie when she enters, and so I don't know. But you said called
according to
policewoman.
IMDb, she is policewoman. But I also think they got Angus's last name wrong. So IMDb is a lot like it's a lot like Wikipedia. I think people can kind of put whatever they want. So
we're gonna start putting some weird names on these characters.
Yeah, I'm just gonna start crediting myself as guest stars.
That's perfect. So Brad has been throwing bricks, like you said, with some older boys. He's the only one who was slow enough to get caught. The other boys, his brothers, Mark and Randy, who are apparently besties now because Randy's been abandoned by this rebelling older brother. They're excited to see their brother in handcuffs, but they are ushered back upstairs.
They have really bonded. In the first season, it was very much a Brad Randy relationship, and as Brad kind of matures, it's sort of a Randy Mark sort of thing, which I guess is good for Mark. He needs the camaraderie. Seems to know so little about the world. Yeah,
you really have harped on that over a few episodes.
I think there's something wrong with him.
Well, we'll see. I would agree as things go on, it might turn out that way. But Brad's explanation for what he's doing, he's not trying to break the windows, but instead he's trying to throw it over the greenhouse.
That I get. Yeah, so, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's something you.
They bring him into the house, and he is. It really is. He does a 180 so quickly in this episode. Both. He goes from good to bad and then bad to good. It's all over as Tim said in the bit of wisdom, over 23 minutes, things change very much. So he comes in the couch and he lays down when they're talking to him, and it's good acting from Brad. He plays the little twerp very well.
He made me mad.
He was frustrated. He was very, very rude. He's defiant. He tells them, Tim says, I went out on a limb for you, and you made me look bad. You're not going to the monster truck rally. Brad says, that I am. Do we want to play a clip here of some of Brad's just blatant disrespect? Or will it make you too mad?
Well, luckily we'll be off air while we do it.
We won't be able to hear it. So, all right, go ahead.
Plant your butt on that stuff and don't even think about moving. You're grounded. You're so grounded.
Who are these other kids you're with that obviously run faster than you?
Well, Brad, come on, answer him. Sit up.
Just some friends.
All right, now, are these the same friends that dared you to put the frog in the salad?
It was Jell-O.
Don't get smart.
First, you sneak out while you are grounded. Now you're breaking windows. What is going on?
I wasn't trying to break them.
Would you miss science class or something? You throw a brick at a window, you expect it to stick?
I was trying to throw it over the greenhouse.
Oh, you're throwing it over. Well, that's great.
You are beyond grounded. No TV, no seeing your friends, no talking on the phone.
And no monster truck rally.
That's not fair.
What do you mean it's not fair? I stick up for you so you can go. What do you end up doing? Coming on with a cop.
I'm going to the truck rally.
You're going to bed.
You can't tell me what to do.
Yes, I can tell you what to do. That's my job. Now go on upstairs. You can forget about those Fordzilla tickets. I'm giving them to somebody else.
Can I bring Billy? Oh, shut up!
Yeah, so Brad, like you said, blatant disrespect right here. He says he's going anyway. Tim cannot tell him what to do, which is, exactly what parents are there for, to kind of tell you what to do. Tim kind of forcefully grabs him by the arm, tells him to march upstairs. He's going to give the tickets to someone else. And at the end of the scene, we get a little bit of comic relief as Mark pops up and says, I don't know if he's saying, can I take someone else or whatever. I forget what he says.
Yeah, he asked if he can bring a friend to the monster truck rally.
And Randy...
And the joke is they've been listening the whole time. And they're loving hearing Brad just kind of get chewed out by his father.
And you really just see, Randy and Mark. Randy, he's trying to teach Mark how to be sneaky and be more clever. It's just not taken hold yet, so...
Last episode with the tree, very much the same thing.
Very much the same
Mark
thing.
just doesn't get it.
He just doesn't get it. He's got some problems, as you said.
Doesn't get it. That's why he goes goth later on in the series. He
just doesn't get it.
He just doesn't get it, right?
Yeah, sure, that makes sense.
Next scene.
Next day at home.
Yeah, maybe. Who's to say?
It's got to be next morning.
Who's to say?
This is Friday. To me, this is Friday night. This is what happened Friday night. Saturday morning, Tim is going to go to the Highland Games. He wakes up. He has.
You mean to tell me you think on a Friday night Tim's just hanging out reading books about Scotland?
What else you got to do? He's got to prepare for the Highland Games.
He could be going to Big Mike's Tavern.
Well, he's already spent too much time there.
Yeah, that's true.
Gets him in some trouble.
That's been a source of conflict.
You got to give it a break every once in a while. You can't go to Big Mike's every weekend.
You can't eat Stinkies every day. You get put on weight.
It comes out of your pores too. It's. Just,
I'll say.
Yeah, you would say.
I'll say. So Tim enters wearing a kilt, and it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's great. Jill thinks it's sexy, and Tim thinks he looks like a girl, and we get a few more of those like girl kilt skirt jokes, and they're still not funny.
Jill says she wishes it was shorter, and then she says the kilt, and I don't know about you, Jordan, but my interpretation of that is they were talking about something phallic related.
I would say you're probably right.
And by that, I mean
Stop
a penis.
Boy, we didn't know what you were talking about there. I'm glad you cleared that up.
Had to do it. Not everybody watches the episodes. Gotta fill them in.
That's right. And this is a relatively short scene, speaking of the short, or not so short kilt, I guess. We pan outside, and Brad is raking leaves, and Randy is tossing a football around. On the football, it's a Binford football, so they're really trying to endorse their product everywhere.
You're noticing some good details this episode. I'll give you credit for that. You're noticing things that I surely did not pick up on, but I gotta blame my shady stream. I need to get the DVDs again.
Yeah, you gotta get the DVDs.
I'm just not seeing things.
There's no way you could possibly read Binford on that stream. There's just no way.
So this is a punishment. Brad's being forced to rake. I'm assuming you probably didn't ever really get in trouble as a child.
A couple times, but not very often.
What would your punishment have been?
Well, yeah, I guess I would have been grounded, not been able to go places. One time I got soap in my mouth, so that was...
Wow.
That was about it.
What'd you say?
I don't remember.
Did you swear?
Probably. I mean, what else would garner such a ruthless response from my parents?
You did it. Your mom did it, right? Your dad wouldn't do that.
I'm sure. But yeah, for the most part, I did not get in a lot of trouble.
My punishment would have been, well, like I mentioned the TV thing earlier. I think if I were to have gotten in trouble for anything, it would have been mouthing off like Brad does. Maybe not to the same degree, but I suspect every child goes through a phase where they begin to kind of challenge, or they think they're kind of clever. I would have been forced to pick up pine cones. My yard was littered with pine trees, lots of pine cones. So similar punishment. So I was kind of, I understood what Brad was going through with this.
Yeah, I had to do crab apples because we have.
Yeah.
But that's not because I was in trouble. My next door neighbor, he got into trouble a lot. His punishment was that I had to go home. So it was really a punishment for me. So
Sam?
Yeah, Sam. So that was Sam's punishment a lot of the time. So
Jordan's gotta go.
Jordan's gotta go. So yeah, that was sad for me and Sam.
Yeah, it's too bad.
More of a punishment for me, I think. But yeah, so Randy goes on to say, he's thanking him for being the evil son, and he kind of gives an example of Brad's ruined reputation. If the football were to go over the fence and break Wilson's window, who do you think they would blame?
He's diabolical, and I thought he was really going to do it for a second.
I did. He steps up onto this chair, and it's kind of like, to me, he's like kind of symbolizing his superiority over Brad in this moment, and Brad's not having any of it. He starts attacking Randy. I think also Randy goes on to say that he can't run faster than a girl because the cop was a girl. And that
classic young boy misogyny, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, picking up right from their dad. Yeah, you cannot run a woman. It's like Brad's legs are the size of, they're like a foot long each. He's just like a little boy. Of course, he's not going to be able to outrun like anyone? A female officer of the law who's like in shape. But
Randy doesn't see it that way. And yeah, Tim comes out to break up their little tussle, and Randy says, "Hey, Mom, where's Dad?" Because Dad has a kilt on.
He's wearing a kilt, which. It was kind of funny.
So Tim says, get out of here. Either you help with raking these leaves, or you get out of here. So he runs. He says he's going to go redo his homework. And at this point, Tim is trying to extend an olive branch to Brad, and Brad is not interested at all. Tim says...
Tim has a real problem in this episode. He doesn't want Brad to be mad at him.
Yeah, he's trying to play...
He's uncomfortable with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's really trying to get on his good side and not really playing the disciplinarian very well. He says they can go work on the hot rod together. Brad says, "I don't want to work on the stupid hot rod."
That's a really good... Was that a clip you just played?
No, that was me.
Sounded just like him. Oh, wow.
That was pretty good, huh? Yeah, I've been taking some acting classes down at the, I don't know where you would take those around here, but Brad
Disney acting school.
That's right. Yeah, so Brad is mad that Tim lied, And then he says, "Why don't you?" I don't know what he says here. He kind of says it under his breath.
Yeah, you can't hear him. It's like, why don't you? But,
He tries to run off. Dad catches him by his arm again. Brad kind of compounds his issues here, and Tim continues to give longer and longer grounding.
Yeah, 2 more days, 3 more days. Brad throws the
bag of
leaves over the fence into Wilson's yard, and
there must have been some heavy leaves.
And you know where this is headed.
Yeah, hits Wilson in the head.
Wilson stirs, and he comes to the fence, and Jordan...
Clip time?
Let's play a clip.
Brad. Just gets old enough to start having fun with. And all we do is fight.
Sounds like he's caught in the classic tribal industrial dilemma.
Oh, yeah, that's what it probably is, yeah.
He's trying to cross the threshold into manhood, but he doesn't know how. You see, Tim, in tribal societies, as soon as boys show the first signs of becoming men, they're immediately initiated into adulthood.
How?
Well, some of the more popular rituals include scarring, pulling of teeth, ritual circumcision.
Brad doesn't even like getting his hair cut.
But unfortunately, in our industrial society, we don't have these rituals. We prolong adolescence beyond the biological indications of manhood, confusing the child as well as the parent.
Wow. I thought he was just being a jerk. What should I do?
I can't tell you that, Tim. Nowadays, each father has to find his own unique way to initiate his son.
As you heard, Wilson knows his monster trucks, and there's a reoccurring kind of bit here where Tim thinks that they're talking about Brad, but Wilson's talking about the truck. Wilson...
He also knows about Brad because he has a police scanner.
Oh, yeah, he does have a police scanner. Wilson is so weird. He cites the tribal industrial dilemma.
Yeah.
And Brad he's going through puberty. As a society, we prolong adolescence when really Brad should be crossing the threshold into adulthood, and he needs to be initiated. But Wilson is, he's reluctant to say how that initiation should take place.
Right.
And Tim's pretty disappointed. He's, usually you give me some advice or you make me feel better. But Wilson
I argue
is
that
unable
he
to
does
do
give
so.
advice here, but...
I would argue that his advice is always about the same, and it's never that helpful.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter what he says. It's just that Tim goes and says it wrong to somebody. They laugh, and then they kind of bond. So instead of giving advice, though, Wilson sings Kumbaya to Tim. Tim's not really interested in that, though. He wants to hear the song Michael rowed the boat ashore, which I did not know.
Yeah, and it's kind of played to the same exact tune, so...
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they just kind of sing that, and that's how that scene ends. And we move on to, I guess, later on Saturday when he's at the Highland Games. So it's pretty much everything that you would imagine a Scottish festival to be. There's kilts everywhere, Scottish attire. There's some sheep and sheepdogs, people practicing the caber toss. It's all sorts of Scotland over here. So Tim and Al roll up here in Al's souped-up station wagon that he did a bunch of modifications to by himself. Tim is impressed, but he's also surprised. He doesn't realize that Al is into cars and the automotive industry like he is, which kind of surprised me. I feel like he should know that about his partner in crime by now. But I also wanted to point out that they did kind of a special camera angle here. It's not the crane shot that you love so much. But it is kind of like an angle shot from the side mirror. And did you notice that? Did you enjoy that?
I didn't really notice it a ton. Like you said, I like the aerial shots. I like the overhead shots. I like long shots. Touch of Evil, the Orson Welles movie, long opening shot, like 7 minutes. The movie The Player with Tim Robbins, another really long like opening shot without any cuts. So I'm more impressed by that. I probably should have noticed this, but yeah, I mean, you're saying they were felt like they had the innards of the car like at an angle.
It was kind of like it was like in the corner by the left driver's side mirror, so not the rear view mirror.
Okay.
But you mentioned the long shot. I told you I watched Dial M for Murder the other day, and they had a really, really long scene in there that was very impressive that they did, and you could...
I watched A Perfect Murder last night. which is a remake of Dial M for Murder. This is basically becoming sort of a film. This episode's very film-centric.
It sure is. And that might be where we go in the future. Who knows?
I used to say Dangercast. You said that Tim was surprised that Al was into cars.
Yeah.
Why would that be a surprise?
I don't
Tim?
know.
That doesn't make any sense. Just be like saying you like tools.
Yeah, weirdo. Yeah. Why are you on the show with me? I don't get it.
Al has he's fixed up an we'll Mercury Marquis wagon.
Yeah, baby.
Because his mother thought it would be a safe vehicle. Tim's wearing his kilt. He didn't wear any underwear.
Yeah.
And
Al said you're supposed to.
Tim says that explains a lot.
So Tim and Al got here early so that they could, mostly for Tim to be able to practice. So Angus comes up and he says, "Do you want to give it a shot?" They pick out capers at this point. Angus makes a joke saying that he could use the shorter one for women, and then Tim decides, no, I'm going to use the full-size one, and then he picks it up, and immediately he cannot really handle the weight. He goes from one side of the scene in this open field and almost hits these people dancing. He goes to the other side, he almost hits the sheep, and eventually it wheels its way around, and he ends up hitting the windows of Al's car, so that was kind of the foreshadowing that I was referring to in that early scene.
Yeah.
And it was mentioned I think it was in reference to the brick scene and that scene, so.
It's pretty stupid.
Yeah, it's not a great scene.
Tim like runs around with the caber for a while, and he's going to break something. It's just a matter of time, and then, it goes through poor Al's window, and
it still wasn't too much damage. I mean, he just has to replace a couple windows, right?
I don't really understand why there's any of this Scottish themed stuff in the episode. I don't know if they were trying to grasp onto something, because there really isn't, there really aren't any parallels to be drawn between what's happening there and what's happening with Brad.
No, I suppose not.
Is it solely for the kilt jokes?
I guess so. I mean, maybe this was a bigger thing in the 90s than we are aware of.
I thought it was related to the Highlander film for a while, but that came out 6 years before this, so it wouldn't have had anything to do with that. So I don't know. I doubt it's a real thing. I mean,
do you think that maybe the caber toss was a rite of passage in Scottish tradition?
Do I think? I suppose that's a possible explanation, but that's not anything that they say. So maybe to me it feels like they had two ideas for something that they wanted to do, and they just tried to kind of weave them together. But I'm more interested in the Brad maturation plot than anything to do with the Scottish games. But say c'est la vie, I suppose.
So now we're in the garage with Brad and Tim. And, Tim's trying to talk to him, saying, I know you're going through a lot as far as hormones and whatever's going on, but if you ever feel like you need to talk, you can talk to me. During this, he pinches his finger, which leads to an opportunity for Brad to be initiated here by using the blowtorch.
We should say earlier, Brad wanted to use a blowtorch earlier in the episode, and Tim was very dismissive of it.
Right.
He immediately
I guess they did set that up pretty well.
Yeah, they did a good job with that, and that's something that I didn't notice until my second watch this morning. It was just an early scene. I think it's when they're Brad notes earlier. Brad says, "When are we gonna do blank with the hot rod?" He says, "Can I use the blowtorch?" And Tim says, "No." But this time
he says it's man stuff.
It's man stuff, and this time Brad says, Brad says, "Can I do it?" And Tim at first says no, but then he recognizes this as an opportunity to kind of initiate Brad, and he allows him to use the blowtorch. And do you think that Brad... I don't know enough, and listeners are well aware that I don't know much about any of this, but do you think Brad was actually using the blowtorch?
I think so.
Looked real.
It looks real to me. I mean, he seems like he knows more than I would know. And
right.
Yeah, I mean, you would if you were around it all the time. And during the scene, he even says, like, I know, a couple times.
I got it. I don't. What exactly is he doing? Do we?
Well,
know?
He has to light the blowtorch. So he has to create a spark to do that, and then he's supposed to be cutting this piece of pipe at like a specific speed so that it's a smooth edge and not jagged or anything.
In the words of Bruce Springsteen, you can't start a fire without a spark.
Exactly, and that's
right. Brad knows that.
Brad knows that. He listens to a lot of Springsteen.
Brad does this. He completes a task. The audience goes hog wild. I think they probably just reused the cheers from earlier in the episode.
that's probably.
And now and after this scene, there is a good amount of sentiment, and we're going to go ahead and play a clip here.
What are you trying to do?
I'm getting the tailpipe set up for the exhaust system. Oh.
I could do it.
No, this is man stuff. You got to do all the torching and flame and. Why don't you give it a shot?
Do you really mean it?
Yeah. So now put that helmet on.
I know.
Tighten it back here. All right, now turn your acetylene on the same...
I know. I've seen you a million times.
Okay. Just relax. Just scratch it across here, why? Ouch. It's easy. I scored a pipe where I want you to cut it. All right? Now, don't go too slow. You'll burn a hole right through it. If you go too fast, you won't get an even cut. Open up your stance a little bit. Get down there and start cutting. There you go. Good. I'm impressed.
Thanks, Dad. It was really neat.
Really neat? Better than that, man. You moved into a new phase of your life.
I have?
Yeah. You just cut metal with fire. We gotta celebrate.
Celebrate?
Yeah.
Oh, Dad, please.
Wait a minute. We can't forget the ritual anointing of the man-child. Holy oil. Holy 10W40, all weather.
What are you doing?
Come on, it's part of the ritual. Oh, yeah. You're getting off easy. You should hear what Wilson wanted me to do to you. You're a man-child now. But you're still real slow for a little kid. Would I have a girl? I thought you were a little guy. Come on. A little slow boy like that. Oh, maybe it was a girl in disguise and I didn't even tell it. See? Oh. Good step today. Your first step towards manhood. That's it. Now, finish cleaning the basement.
Yeah, so a very emotional and touching moment here between Brad and his dad. But before we talk too much about that, I wanted to ask if you saw what kind of shirt he was wearing. It seems to be his favorite shirt. Do you know?
The Lions just recovered a fumble!
That's right. He's wearing his Lions shirt. Tim does kind of an anointing ritual.
How many Lions shirts does he have?
I don't know.
I feel like at this point, every episode he's wearing a Detroit Lions shirt. And I dig it.
Well, and he might actually need to get, another one now because this shirt is probably ruined. It's got different oils, WD-40 on it. And, the only thing that really takes away from the scene to me is for some reason Tim calls his son a girl when he's hitting him, and
it's a little strange. It kind of undercuts the moment. Brad says, "Yeah, it's really neat." Tim initiates him with, is it castor oil? Or
it's WD-40.
WD-40. They kind of shadow box, and they're having a good time, and Brad's excited, and the fake boxing slowly turns into a hug, and I thought it was a nice moment. I like this scene. It just tugged my heartstrings a little bit, and
Brad needed some love.
He needed some love, and he was, he wanted to be respected a little bit, and the two make up, and all is well. Did you like this scene, or not as much?
I don't know. I mean, I thought it was a pretty good scene. It was a nice emotional moment that we got between Brad and his dad, which I don't know that we've seen very much of in the series so far. We've certainly seen it with him and Mark, with Tim and Mark, but the only thing that I was concerned about is, I thought Brad was hitting his dad a little bit hard. And
concerned.
That was, I didn't want Tim to have any bruises after this and whatnot. But overall, I thought it was a pretty good scene and well acted. So,
final scene of the episode: Brad and Tim are sitting on the couch, and Mark and Randy return home from the monster truck rally. They had a great time, but they're also very, very dirty.
Super
and I didn't
dirty.
understand why they were dirty.
Well, they were in the front seats, and monster truck rallies tend to have dirt all over the ground, so I guess it got up and
It
splashed.
just picks up dirt, I suppose. But they got some hats, and they brought Brad a hat as well, and he's excited about that. He kind of brags about using a flame to cut metal, and everybody's excited. And Jill, her entrance is a little bit staggered. She comes in and she's got a hat on as well, but she can't hear at all because it was so loud. And they make some jokes about that. Tim asks her questions, and she's unable to hear them. The last joke is that she thinks that Tim asks her to sleep with him, and she says, "No, I can't.
I'm dirty.
I'm dirty." And roll credits.
Roll credits, yeah. And while they're rolling credits, they show a scene earlier that's an outtake where Tim comes on the scene with his kilt, and he starts to flash Jill. He flashes the crowd. It's all sorts of everywhere.
Do you think that he was not wearing underwear?
No, he absolutely had it on. There's
There's
no way that he could get away
Jordan,
with that.
it was the 90s.
I don't care when it was. That's no way.
Okay. I kind of
You think he flashed everyone in the audience, too?
I don't know. Shock jock, you know?
Well, I guess...
I think you shouldn't be so dismissive. I think it's a possibility.
I just, I choose to believe in the betterment of Home Improvement, and there's no way.
Betterment, the 401k investing service.
That is where I have my
They don't
IRA.
sponsor us. We're not talking about them.
Okay. So yeah,
what do you think of this episode, Jordan?
I thought it was... my overall thoughts, I thought, it's always nice when they tackle a real problem that people deal with.
Scottish games?
Yeah. And everyone deals with a Scottish game issue
Everyone
least once
has
in
had
their life.
that moment where someone says, you can't throw a caber far, and they have to prove that they can.
Absolutely.
But yeah, they tackle a real problem, and Brad still has consequences for his actions. I don't know that we really mentioned it, but after Tim and him hug it out, he still has to go and do the rest of his chores and everything. So I think that ended well. Hopefully, Tim learned a little bit about parenting here because, in this crucial moment with his son, he kind of undermines his wife and kind of the front that they want to put on, and so hopefully that happens. And
I think he does because I think like the moment he does that, Brad just continues to kind of misbehave. And I think that is kind of like him like going out on a limb and then being proven that like that doesn't work is sort of, I think that is like the teachable moment. So.
Yeah, I would say my least favorite part of this episode is that there is quite a bit of like the you hit like a girl or the kilt/girl jokes, all that kind of stuff all rolled up into.
There were a lot of those, and those are not. That's not especially funny, but that's also I think that's kind of 90s humor, and I think that's definitely like Tim Allen humor. Probably
Yeah,
as well,
it's not a huge surprise, but still not something I super enjoyed. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a pretty good episode.
Yep.
I thought Brad did pretty well in his acting, so...
Mm-hmm. I like this episode. I think this is definitely one of the better Brad episodes. I think he played the little turd very well. His annoying, kind of whiny voice and just kind of his back talk rang kind of true to me. Like you said, I like the idea of them tackling like real issues, like being a cool parent versus being a disciplinarian, punishments, chores, responsibilities, and just like I don't know that I bought the stuff about Brad becoming a man necessarily because I still feel like he's probably too young to be considered a man. But as Wilson says, we as a society prolong adolescence. But Brad's still only like 12, I think. Like there's no way realistically he's older than 12. So I don't know. That seemed maybe like he was a little young to be considered a man. But I suppose it's more symbolic than not. But yeah, I like the topic. I like the idea. Scottish game stuff was maybe lacking a little bit, but it wasn't offensive to me. And I like this episode on the whole.
You're not offended by Scottish people?
No, I mean I guess I was more thinking like it's just not so like absurdly stupid or boring. Like it's kind of just bland for me.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't particularly funny, but it also wasn't. It's not like Tim backing the truck into that guy's front porch and. Like it's not a completely useless subplot. I suppose.
Did they have any accidents like they normally do on the first episode of the season? I don't remember any of the.
Read my hips. I am not entirely sure. I would have to look at my notes on that. Yeah, I don't.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Well, I guess the blowtorch thing is, but that wasn't an accident necessarily. So no, must be not. But I don't know. Yeah, that's always going to be. That's just like a home improvement staple is the pratfalls and stuff. And this one was the caber through the car was fine. They didn't dwell on it especially.
It was nice that the cold open was actually like a reference to something that happened in the episode this time instead of
later on in the episode. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a different change from episode 1, but overall a pretty good episode.
I think so. I enjoyed it. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the next thing we're going to do is move on to our first mailbag segment of season 2.
You've got mail.
All right, so this question comes from Awesome Sauce, and she asks, what season are you most looking forward to watching? So over the course of the entire series, what season are we most excited to watch? And I mean, in short, I would say the last season, because it would mean that we have finished every episode and we are almost done working our way through the series.
But that's like 3 years away.
But that's forever away. I don't know enough about, and I'm not super knowledgeable about like season by season Home Improvement.
I'm not super knowledgeable about any of this, so.
No. I know that the episodes where Randy has, or they fear that Randy has cancer, I know that those are kind of a departure from sort of the silly stuff that we get earlier on in the series. So I will be interested to see how those are handled.
Mm-hmm.
And I also look forward, I know that, like I said earlier, Rodney Dangerfield pops up an episode. So I'm excited for that. We have some good Christmas episodes and Halloween episodes coming up, and those are kind of my favorites as well. But in terms of a season, I don't know that I have necessarily have a very satisfying answer for that. What about you, Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo a lot of the sentiments that you said there. I'm excited for them to try something a little bit different, to take on some new, different topics. Since you mentioned Rodney Dangerfield, I'm excited to see that, and that'll be...
Have you seen... Do you remember that one at all?
I'll probably remember more when I see it. I vaguely remember him on the show.
He's at... I know that they're at the Silverdome, and they run into him there. And yeah, like we said, we're both big Rodney Dangerfield fans. Yeah, I'm just looking forward. I remember, and I think Grant Hill pops up. I'll be excited for that. But yeah, no specific season excites me more. Excited for every season that we work our way through.
That's right.
Thank you for the question, Awesome Sauce.
That's right.
And if you want to reach out to us on Twitter, we are at Home and Podcast. And I have a poll to run through from last week's episode, and it is related to a kiss that may or may not have happened. Right, so
I think not.
So it was my understanding in the last episode that Brad and Jennifer Zdarsky kissed, but Jordan informed me that they didn't. So that is I don't know how I was confused by that.
You just it's that blurry video. I'm telling you what.
Maybe that's why people didn't vote on it. But my question was, how old were you when you got your first peck? 60% said 15 to 18, 40% said 11 to 14, 0% said 7 to 10, and 0% said I'm still waiting. So that poll was a real flop. I'll go ahead and just say it just did not work. But,
every time you can't have a great one every time.
I'm not Stacey Castle. I'm not going to bat 1,000.
No,
every once in a while I'm going to have a stinker. But yeah, follow us on Twitter. I have been tweeting quite a bit this week, so we like to interact that way. We are on Facebook. Facebook. Home and Podcast?
It's Facebook.com/Home and Podcast.
How else can they reach us, Jordan?
Yeah, email is homeandpodcast@gmail.com. Our website, thehomeandpodcast.com. So certainly a lot of different options there. Once again, we want to say thank you to our sponsor this week, Linda Sta. She sponsored us on Patreon. You can do the same for just $1 a month there. Or on our website, there's also just a support option for any amount that you want to put. But patreon.com/Home and Podcast. So,
Home and Podcast, the gift that just keeps on giving.
Sure does.
So give yourself a gift this Christmas and support us, and we'll just keep riding it out all the way to season 8, 9,
whatever
200
it is.
episodes, whatever it is. But yeah, so thank you. Yeah, thank you, Stacey and Linda, for your contributions. And anything else to report, Jordan?
No, I think we'll just talk about the next episode we're going to be covering is Overactive Glance. So.
Boy, I'm curious to see where that goes.
I know how much you like puns, so that's probably great for you.
Love puns.
Mm-hmm. So I think, once
just was waiting for you to say it.
You would never bring it up on your own.
I'm not going to introduce my own question of the week.
So I just feel like I feel like you need to ask me a question.
Do I? All right. Question of the week time. You say.
I asked for it. What will you deliver?
You want it? You got it, baby. All right. So.
Is it going to be one about my childhood that I don't remember again?
I'm tired of asking you those. Yeah. All too often, I ask you questions about your childhood, and you're just like, "Well, I would have to think about it." What are your experiences with monster trucks? We didn't really talk about that. You ever been to a monster truck rally or anything?
I don't think so. I think I had some, you know how, you get the Hot Wheels cars and stuff. I had some monster truck cars that I used to drive around on my little fake road mat that I had. Never been to a rally. Didn't really ever watch a rally on TV. I didn't quite understand the fascination there. Seems like a lot of dirt. I don't like to get messy.
That's true. Yeah, you hate getting messy. I've never been to one either. We didn't talk about this in the episode, but I did think it was funny. Like their impersonations of like Sunday.
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know, and maybe it was like this everywhere, but I feel like the Flint radio stations were just constantly playing like monster truck and be there Sunday. Bone
crusher.
Bone crusher. Just like that voice. Yeah.
Bone digger? That would be the weirdest name for
Bone digger? Was it Bone Crusher?
It can't be Bone digger. What would that be?
Are there famous monster trucks? That's a good question.
Yeah, I think there are.
I don't know. I've never been to one. The only time I've ever really seen it in action is there's a scene in Blues Gravedigger. It's called Gravedigger. There's a scene in Blues Brothers 2000, which is the sequel to Blues Brothers that I like. I don't think anybody else does.
I saw it in theaters with my dad, so...
See, I think I did too. I like it.
I don't remember very much. I don't know why I went to see it, but...
Oh, it's good.
It's good.
In my opinion. Where they watch a monster truck rally before they perform at a bluegrass festival. And they call themselves the Bluegrass Brothers, which... was funny then and seems kind of funny now. So, but yeah, no real experience with monster trucks. So,
the thing about monster trucks is they're kind of like in horse racing. The jockeys don't get really any fame, but the trucks named Goliath or whatever else, they get all the fame.
Have you ever been to a horse race?
I have not.
We just don't do very much, it seems.
Garage sailing and home and podcast.
Yeah. Going to old movie theaters and watching
It's a Wonderful Life or Notorious or whatever else. So.
All right. Well, hey, Jordan, it's been a pleasure talking to you. And thanks, everyone, for listening. I guess I should say take care.
Take care, everybody.